his whole POV kind of is like, F you, make me.
Exactly.
Right? It's like,
yes.
Mr. President, you
yes.
have to
yes.
have a Department of Education.
Yes.
Mr. President, you have to have
yes.
USAID. And he's like, F you, make me.
Yeah. And my deal is, if I was sitting on the bench, I would make him. He would find out. Like, this would be the true clash of our Constitution, right? Like, this would be the clash of, like, which branch are they really co-equal, and, like, is there respect? Because if it's anybody else, if there's nobody that's above the law, then why is it that he's acting like it? And it's because you're allowing him to. If you would lock me up or anybody else up for violating court orders and doing these things, then lock him up.
Americans are angry. They're screaming online, in town halls, and in the street. Meanwhile, Chuck Schumer makes videos about how Taco Trump needs to go harder on Iran, days before we bombed it.
If Taco Trump is already folding, the American public should know about it. No side deals.
Yeah, you got him, Chuck. But unlike many of her colleagues, Texas Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett is meeting the moment. She is bringing maximum outrage to what the Trump administration is doing, often right to Republicans' faces.
These are our national secrets. Looks like in the shitter to me.
If you could speak directly to Elon Musk, what would you say?
Off. If someone on this committee then starts talking about somebody's bleach blonde, bad built butch body, that would not be engaging in personalities, correct?
What now?
Moments like that have brought Congresswoman Crockett plenty of attention online, with legions of supporters yas-queening her every move. So I sat down with the Congresswoman to talk about why her message is resonating with so many Americans, to discuss some practical advice for protesters, and to ask her about the Trump administration's legal strategy, which I call you, make me.
I'm a dad. Dads love controlling the thermostat. It's the one thing we have control over in the household. Let's talk about the temperature of this country. As we're sitting down, this is what's going on in the country. I'm gonna just give you what I'm reading on the thermostat. Right now, a California Senator, Alex Padilla, was thrown to the ground and handcuffed after asking Kristi Noem a question at a press conference. Congresswoman LaMonica McIver was charged after trying to enter an ICE immigration detention facility. We had a military parade on the president's birthday. That same day, millions of people marched in the street for the No Kings protest.
Yeah.
So I'm reading the thermostat, and it looks like it's piping hot in the house.
Yeah, as Nelly would say, being from St. Louis, it's getting hot in here.
Hot in here.
Yeah. I will tell you that, and I'm sure you as well, you know, this country, as a little girl, I didn't believe in limitations, right? Like, I thought, man, like, this is great and there's nothing I can't do. I mean, maybe it's just how my parents raised me, and they may have just raised me to be like super naive. I'm not really sure, but to wake up and to be where I am and then still feel so helpless at times.
Yeah.
I remember walking into another member's office, and one of her staffers says, "Did you see what happened to Alex?" Now in the house, when someone says Alex, we all think AOC, because that's what we call her. We call her Alex.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, we call her Alex. So I was like, what happened to Alex? And then the staffer points to the TV. And I look at the TV, and that's where I see, like, I had no warning whatsoever.
Yeah.
And so I see they're playing a loop of what happened to Senator Padilla. And I literally just broke down in tears and started crying, because it is hard for me to imagine, you know, even just looking at Senator Padilla, this is the first Latino senator that the state of California has ever had. He is the senior senator in that state.
Yeah.
And
in the video, he announces he's a senator as well. He makes it very clear who he is. He identifies himself.
And then there's no respect, not like a modicum of respect for him, nor his position, nor his humanity.
Right.
Because first of all, I don't think that you need to be a senator to not have ICE take you to the ground because you had the audacity in a democracy where we supposedly respect free speech and freedom of press, even though he wasn't press, but it was a press conference. Like, you would think that you wouldn't do this to anybody, let alone a senator, but it tells you like how sinister this administration is. And like he said, and he said it almost through tears. Imagine what they're doing to people that aren't senators.
Right.
Imagine what they're doing to that dishwasher, that landscaper, that farmer.
If this is how the Department of Homeland Security responds to a senator with a question, you can only imagine what they're doing to farm workers, to cooks, to day laborers out in the Los Angeles community and throughout California and throughout the country.
Look, there's a lot of anger in the air right now. And one of the things that you have done, Congresswoman, is you have been uniquely positioned to identify those moments. But one of the things I wanted to ask you is, for us and for our listeners, the people that watch the show and the podcast, what are we not angry enough about right now? What are we missing? What's something that you wish we focused on?
Yeah, I think we're not sending enough anger to all of those that are co-conspirators and accomplices of Trump. Trump couldn't do this by himself, right? And so what's going to happen is we're going to have the midterms in a minute, and people will have excuses for voting for their representatives that literally are the ones that are taking food out of their mouths, that are shutting down their farms, that are taking away their health care. I don't think that it's good enough that you just show up to a town hall. You need to vote them out, because that's the only thing that people respect in a democracy is people rising up and using their voices at the ballot box. And so while I appreciate all of the energy on the ground, but it is time for us to organize. It is time for those Democrats to go find their Republican friends and say, listen, whichever reason made you decide you wanted to vote Republican, you can still be a Republican. But like, if you want to stop Donald Trump, then you have to vote the other way, or just don't vote at all. Like, let us carry this weight. And that's in the House and the Senate. Right now, the anticipation is that we will continue to be in the minority in the Senate. But I think that we are living in such extraordinary times that literally people all need to say, there's no way that any of us can be accomplices. I mean, you think about the incompetence that has made us very vulnerable, whether it comes to Hegseth being that secretary, or whether it comes to DHS and that secretary. Like, it's not just like these people voted to put these people in. Like, your senators were the ones that said, yes, go ahead and send them
at the confirmation
through.
hearings. Yeah,
exactly. And
through.
so like, I just think that the anger needs to be spread all around, because while Trump believes that he's a king and he's gonna violate as many laws of our land, of the Constitution, etc., it's still with like the approval of the Senate as well as House Republicans. Even when we look at something like the tariffs, they had a chance to rein them in, because as far as I'm concerned, they are illegal. We know that the low court, the trial court, determined that he did not have the authority. He keeps invoking emergency powers because he's like a little madman that's sitting there and everything's an emergency. And so he's abusing his power as president. And so like the Senate literally like did not have enough votes to rein him in. So when you can't afford your food or your Christmas or even to keep your small business open, just know that it wasn't Trump by himself. It's everybody else that's allowing him to do this.
You know, people talk about the legal repercussions for all of this. And that's why I'm so glad, Congresswoman, you got to join us on the pod, because you are a lawyer and a member of the House Judiciary Committee. This is what the cycle of dealing with Donald J. Trump feels like for us as citizens. Trump does a bunch of crazy stuff.
Yes.
Okay? Democrats say, hey, that's illegal.
Yeah.
The courts say, hey, that's illegal.
Yeah.
Nothing happens, and then HBO goes, hey, here's a new season of White Lotus.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. I think that
What's going on here?
I think that this is really the part that Democrats are struggling with the most, is that, yeah, people are like, we hate what they're doing.
Yeah.
But at the same time, do we think that you're going to do anything if we give you like the keys to the palace? And the resounding answer is no, right? Like, people don't believe in us. And I will say that like there is a little grace that I ask for, to the extent that we are dealing with a challenge that we've never faced. You talk about that LSAT problem, right? Like, it really does feel like a law school problem, to the extent that it's like this would never happen, but they make you play it out, on paper. And it's like, oh crap, this is really happening. Right. And so,
and you're a former public defender. So you are a bar certified attorney.
Yeah.
My sister's also an attorney. Is this true that it's like, does the judicial system, it's almost like a 56K modem. We're around the same age. You remember, that's the speed of the courts.
Yeah.
And the chaos of Trump is like T3 fiber optic. I mean, it is the speed of light.
Absolutely.
And so is that where the disconnect is happening of like?
That is part of it, but also, how measured of a response you give, right? Like, so there are those that are concerned about going too far. He has no concerns about going too far. But when it comes to the response, so for instance, I would never walk into anybody's court in any state, in any federal court, anything, and just openly be like, yeah, we gonna ignore your court order. Like, what?
The boldness.
I would just be like, oh, they gonna take me in,
Right.
And so like, even when you look at the Department of Justice and his lawyers and that kind of stuff, they say the most brazen things, almost daring him. I'm like, who are these judges, right?
Yes.
And so then there's this question about like, well, who do you arrest on a contempt action, right? And they had already kind of put it out there that like there was all this political warfare that was going on, lawfare as they call it, which is all like projection. It's like, no, you have a valid court order. Regardless as to whether or not you like it or not, you follow the order of the court. And if you don't like it, you appeal it. And ultimately, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. Do you think that I like the decision that overturned Roe v. Wade? I absolutely don't. I think the Dobbs decision was absolutely wrong. But guess what? The only way that you have law and order in this country is if people will honor what happens, because there is a fear that if you don't, you could be incarcerated. But for whatever reason, this Supreme Court gave him a level of immunity that no other president has ever even felt like they needed. And right now he is flexing that immunity. He is testing this Supreme Court and every other court, because basically they were like, yeah, go break all the laws you want to.
Yeah, how much power do the courts really have? Because kind of what you're talking about, the boldness.
Yeah.
His whole POV kind of is like, fuck you, make me.
Exactly.
Right? It's like, Mr. President, you have to have a Department of Education.
Yes.
Mr. President, you have to have USAID. And he's like, fuck you, make me.
Yeah. And my deal is, if I was sitting on the bench, I would make him. He would find out. Like, this would be the true clash of our Constitution, right? Like, this would be the clash of like, which branch are they really co-equal, and like, is there respect? Because if it's anybody else, if there's nobody that's above the law, then why is it that he's acting like it? And it's because you're allowing him to. If you would lock me up or anybody else up for violating court orders and doing these things, then lock him up. Or lock his minions, lock whoever up who has to be locked up, and not because it's political, because that's the thing. They always try to make it seem like, well, he's the victim and it's political. No, it's not. He's a criminal and he's a thug. He's somebody that has decided that he wants to say, I mean, imagine this, that we have a 34-count convicted felon who had all these other cases that were pending against him, as well as like a court or two has found him liable for fraud and all kinds of stuff. And here it is. Imagine this being the guy telling the immigrants that they are the ones that are causing the crime and wreaking the havoc.
Yeah, we can't have criminals in this country.
Right. And they are the ones messing up. No, let me tell you who's messing up our cities and our economy. It's him. Him and his rogue administration. We just had a hearing with the governors this past week, and I pointed out that the projections right now are that we are going to lose almost $13 billion as it relates to tourism dollars just in 2025. We know that travel from Canada is already down 40%. This guy has not been in for a total of 6 months. And so they're not coming because of the immigrants. When you wanted to say that we had an invasion, that's not why they're not coming. They're not coming because people are literally getting like snatched off the streets of New York when they're literally here visiting while leaving a crying child like in the streets. Like, it's you. You're the thug. You're the criminal that is making our country less safe, that is making our country less great to the extent that nobody wants to come see it.
Will there ever be a presidential perp walk? I saw the New York Times cover. 34 felony counts. I saw I saw the mugshot. He started selling T-shirts off the mugshot like it was a Supreme T-shirt. Yeah. Will there ever be a presidential perp walk? And by all means, you can tell me that I'm young and naive and it's not going to happen.
I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, please tell me.
I don't think it's going to happen. I mean, you know, the fact that he evaded any semblance of the justice system told you that he was flying above, that he enjoyed a level of privilege that no one else has ever enjoyed. The fact that he got any convictions, the fact that he actually got to trial on any case was actually pretty astounding to me. And the crazy part is the cases that were moving, the prosecutors were black. Those were the cases that were moving. It was Alvin Bragg. I mean, it was, and even when we look at the civil side, it was Tish James. Or when we look down in Georgia, it was Fonnie Willis, right? Like, those are the cases that were moving. And I think that it does take a different tenure when you are black in America, and regardless of your station in life, because obviously I'm talking about elected officials, you are not immune to having someone in your family having touched the criminal injustice system at some point. Right. And so if anybody is not going to give a pass, it's probably going to be a black elected prosecutor of some sort that's going to be like, bro, like, we not finna play with you. Ain't nobody tried to play with us. Right. Ain't nobody tried to have like kid gloves with us. Like, no. And they were following the evidence, right? Like, people tried to pretend like it was political. No. You do understand that it was a grand jury that is made up of regular citizens that indicted him.
Yeah, that's a key detail.
Yeah, like
it's people that you take on the MTA North, like people that you take the subway with.
Correct.
These are people from the 5 boroughs.
Of your peers, yes.
Correct.
Same thing with the conviction. At least you were given your due process, something that you're like, oh, I don't know, got to talk to my lawyers. What you mean you don't know? You swore an oath to the Constitution, and this isn't your first time as the president. Like, if you don't know, frankly, you are not qualified to be the president, because if you look at people that have to take their citizenship test, they got to know more about the Constitution than the daggone president.
There has been this demand, and I'm sure you've seen this online, you've seen this in the newspaper, you've seen this in editorials. When will the Republican Party stand up to Donald Trump? That clearly didn't happen during the first term, and it's clearly not happening during the second term. Is that just an insane thing to ask, and is it even possible?
I don't think it's insane to ask. I think it's sad that you have to ask.
But does everybody have that Mitt Romney money? You know, he's got a ketchup empire. No, he can go live on a private island.
No, but it doesn't matter. Like, you just, I mean, at some point in time, you have to say, is it worth it? Because these people are selling their souls, and they're selling the very people that they claim to represent down the river. Is it worth it that literally there are people that are going to die because they have no way of surviving without this health care? Is it worth it to know that, like, you suppose you know, put yourself out there and you say that you are this amazing Christian, but knowing that USAID was cut off and knowing that people literally have died, like, this is not theoretical.
Right.
This is actual. And we take trips, like, members don't talk about this, so you end up with people that are completely ignorant about the things that we do. But we are international diplomatic figures as members of Congress, and we travel the world. And USAID was one of the most powerful tools that we had as it relates to soft power in making sure that people didn't look at the United States and hate us. And next thing you know, start little terrorist organizations that next thing you know may want to come over here and hurt us, right? Like, this was about, like, literally doing goodwill all around the world.
Diplomacy.
Correct. And we're talking about for, like,
through aid.
Pennies. Pennies on the dollar, right? Like, the length that our dollar could go in some of these third world countries, insanely far, right? Like, the medications cost them pennies to save people's lives, and then they can look and say the Americans are good people. And when they started to talk about USAID and all this kind of stuff, we're talking about, I think it was less than 0.5% of our, I mean, it was so minuscule.
It was a nominal amount.
Yeah, and it's like, I get it when people hear the number because it's more than the average person has in their bank account.
Right.
But if you allow them to distract you and make you think that this is where we need to argue, they're distracting you from all of this other money. The money that's going into Elon's pockets, right? Like, the money that he gets from defense contracts, that's what they're distracting you from.
You know, you have been able to articulate the anger that people feel in the streets. I think you've done that quite brilliantly. There is this desire for Democrats to meet the moment and meet their constituents where they are. This is what the people are feeling.
I'm going to keep posting about this all day because this is bullshit. I went and logged into my federal loan account, and this is what I found. I graduated in 2011 with $46,000 in student loan debt. My loan debt is now almost $90,000 fucking dollars. In that time, I've been a social worker that has made income-based repayments on my loan for years, and that shit has almost doubled. You want to know why people are pissed off about their student loans? It's not because we can't get anyone else to pay them for us. It is because you have set it up where we can never pay them off ourselves. And then you sit here and tell us into our faces that we are lazy, this is somehow our fault, while cheering on banks and auto industries and Elon fucking Musk getting subsidies of millions of dollars a day. Anyone who still doesn't see that this is rigged against us can get fucked.
God damn. That video has over 2 million views on Twitter, and you retweeted that video. This is what people are feeling.
Yeah. It breaks my heart. I mean, the days that I wake up and I get in my feelings about how I could go and live a simpler life and I want to quit, I think about who's going to give a damn, who's going to fight, like who is going to be willing to put themselves out on the front lines for somebody like that. Like, it doesn't make sense. Like, there is no, and again, to me, this isn't partisanship. Like, I mean, it's funny because, you know, MAGA will say I'm this extreme leftist for thinking that this is bullshit, right? Mm-hmm. But it's not. This is just wrong. And I mean, it's anti-American, right? Like, this is supposed to be a land of opportunity.
Right.
That's not what opportunity feels like. That feels like weight. That feels like a system that is rigged against you.
Right.
And so, like, we are the system. And so the thing is, it's like, how do you plant yourself in this and try to fix it?
Now, this is what your colleague Chuck Schumer is doing with that anger.
We will win. 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 We won't rest. We won't rest. We won't rest. We won't rest. Thank you, everybody.
Okay. You know exactly what I'm going to say.
You're trying to get me in trouble.
That was so depressing. Look, I watched this and I feel bad for Maxine Waters. Chuck Schumer and Maxine Waters, they said, we will fight 4 times. Are the Democrats meeting the moment, is what I'm trying to say.
No. I just have to be honest. And here's the deal. I don't think that you'd ever get a Democratic Party that would be full of like nothing but Jasmine Crockett. It's like, that's just not going to happen.
Right.
But I do think that there is value in having leadership that understands who the players are on your team and making sure that they're playing their best positions, right?
Right.
So, like, I think, like, for instance, with this, the answer was we all need to be with people. And I was there earlier. I left before Chuck got up. I had to go somewhere. But nevertheless, like...
The show went long.
It did. But also, like, is this really Chuck's space? Not necessarily. This isn't necessarily his space, but I think that he could have been very effective to be like, yo, like, for instance, they did have some senators that are a little more vibrant.
Gotcha.
Is how I'll say it.
Yeah.
That were there.
Spicier with their sriracha.
Correct. And so literally it could have been him doing a press conference where he looks natural, right? Like in the Senate, and basically saying, I thought that it made sense to send Senator Chris Murphy, to send Senator Cory Booker out so that they could go and represent for us. And then I think that you look more cohesive, you look more normal, right? Because he's in his natural habitat and he's basically saying they're a part of my team and I appreciate what they're doing and this is what they're doing for us.
Right.
And taking that. I think we need more of that. What we tend to see is we've got a lot of people that are getting into very unnatural situations,
Yes.
right? Like, right now, we're all like doing podcasts, and I'm like,
is everyone in their pocket on the podcast?
yeah, exactly. That's the
Yes.
thing. And I'm like, I get that you're like, okay, we're probably in about the 1970s when it comes to where we are on comms, and the
Sure.
Republicans are like 2030, so we trying to catch up, right? But I'm like, not everybody goes on the podcast. Yeah. And it's not even being like shady. It's just being honest about the type of communication. You don't go on a podcast and then sound like you're on CNN or MSNBC. Like, it's completely different. And even some members, like, going on CNN or MSNBC, they also aren't necessarily. So, like, I think it's about people.
The game
has
changed.
Exactly.
The game has changed, and you're like, put players in position.
Yes.
That will succeed.
Correct.
In that respective position.
Correct.
Because I'll tell you this: the fight in the style of, let's call it, the political arena has changed.
Yes.
You have been able to shine in a very unique way because you get in there and, dare I say, tussle, or people ask you to tussle.
Yeah.
Let's take a look.
She gonna keep saying trans, so that people will feel threatened. And child, listen, I want y'all to tell me whether or not.
Do not call me a child. I am no child.
I want
Don't
to
even
find
start.
out
I am a grown
which
woman.
of those emails actually have. Chairman, I am reclaiming my time.
You will not do that. I
Order.
am not a child.
I am reclaiming my time.
If you want to take it outside,
Mr. Chairman.
So Nancy Mace told you, let's take this outside. What happened here?
Well, she didn't want to go outside. But, you know, at that point in time, we were trying to get some sort of order restored, right? Yeah. And so that's a violation.
And by the way, Congresswoman, I'm not trying to sound like a yard duty. I literally said what happened here. But I literally feel like I'm a yard duty.
No, seriously. Yeah, so...
How did we get here?
So we basically were like, yo, you can't just openly threaten a sitting member of Congress, especially think about the context of where we are right now, right? So you have members that have that type of behavior that threaten to cause physical harm to another member. And then the next thing you know, people that may not necessarily be mentally all the way there do things like feel emboldened to go out and do what we just saw happen in Minnesota.
It is an assassination that we begin with tonight. It happened in Minnesota, the murder of a state representative and her husband, and what's being called a politically motivated attack.
So for me, it does start at the top because there is a level of acceptance or excuse that they give. And so ultimately, they did not kick her out. She was like, they were like, well, she could have meant go outside to have tea. It didn't necessarily. I was like, that not
to have tea.
That's what they said.
I'll see you outside. I will see you outside.
Yeah, to have tea.
Or,
right, exactly. As
English
you're all
breakfast.
like turned up, right? Like that's what it means. But like Nancy Mace is a performance artist that is searching for attention. She does all kinds of things to get attention. And, you know, I said that her campaign coffers were probably a little dry. I did look, and her campaign coffers did not look like mine. They were quite dry. So, but the idea of like the only way that I can be successful in politics is if I then, you know, beat up on anybody, right? Like, because she had also done this big trans thing for like weeks or whatever.
Right.
And I was like, clearly you're not making any money. And then she decides to go after trans people again in committee. And that's not what we were even there for. I mean, I was just like, what are we doing?
Right.
And it's unsuccessful, but I think she's just happy that she gets like a headline. And so that makes her happy. It's like, I'm in the news.
Right. But
instead of like being in the news for something of substance.
You know, Congresswoman, what's kind of scary here, though, is that we talk about the fight. The fight must continue. But we don't want the fight to turn into a fight.
No,
so where do we go from here? And
we don't.
Here's a little piece of history, and I'd love for you to take a look at this. You know, Charles Sumner was literally caned on the Senate floor in 1856. Now, Charles Sumner vehemently was against slavery. So he wanted to abolish slavery, and things got heated. But these are the Senate chambers that you are inside of. This is your place of work.
Yeah.
It's
quite ghetto.
How do we fight without it turning into a fight?
Yeah, you know, I think I will tell you that there was a conversation that some members had talked about that I was not a part of, where there were some members that literally were concerned about if they speak up, that it will turn into some of the violence kind of coming towards them.
And that was one of the things I wanted to mention. Maybe I've heard this from your Republican colleagues, which was some of them were too afraid to impeach Donald Trump because there might have been violence. And as we're having this conversation.
Yeah, and the violence doesn't come from Democrats, just to be clear. I mean, obviously anyone can be a criminal, but it is MAGA. It's specifically MAGA faction. Like, I don't think traditional Republicans are getting engaged in all of this, but like, even when we look at, and they don't talk about the assassination attempts anymore that took place with Donald Trump, but these were Trump supporters, right? As well as this most recent situation, they tried to flip it and say, oh, the leftists, or I'm like, this doesn't even make sense, right? But it's only like MAGA that does this, or when we went through our speaker election and people were upset about different members not voting for Jim Jordan, who's MAGA. Then next thing you know, like MAGA was then sending threats to their wives and things like that. We had a member who was kicked out of his lease in his district because he failed to do it. Like they get so like viscerally like enraged and they go after anybody that is against Trump, whether they are technically on the same political side or not. And I don't know, you know, in my mind, we would get around some of this when he was out of office. And it seemed like it was still simmering. We still had our fair share of issues. But we know that the numbers have been clear that hate in general is always peaking when he is in power, whether it's anti-Semitism, whether it's xenophobia, whether it's just racism as a whole, like it peaks, as well as the political violence. The fact that I have to have calls about trying to figure out the best ways to keep me safe, the fact that, I mean, I even had some Republicans recently try to make a big deal about me being escorted in Atlanta airport. And it's like, I have to have escorts constantly, especially when I'm in the Deep South, because we don't know when people walk up on me if they are happy to see me or not so happy to see me, right? Yeah. And it's sad, and like we have to move me as quickly as possible out of like the public eye. Yeah. I mean, it's a hard way to live. I mean, it's not normal. But then I think about the videos of the young lady that you played, and I say, you know, heavy is the head that wears the crown. Right. And I just say, okay, this is what I gotta do.
Did you guys hear that X is suing the New York City Attorney General? Elon apparently wants to challenge the Stop Hiding Hate Act because it will require X to disclose how much they moderate sensitive speech, claiming it would violate the First Amendment. Now, at HMDK, we just started using a platform called Ground News, which shows a breakdown of publications reporting on a story in which way they tend to lean politically, right, left, or center. Now, this isn't about eliminating bias. We've all got biases. It's just trying to make you aware of potential biases of different publications so that you can factor that into your own analysis of the issue. For example, with that story about X, I was able to scroll between some of the 43 publications reporting on that lawsuit. And I noticed a right-leaning one included a photo of Elon Musk looking like a business class SEAL Team 6. While the left and center chose photos that make him look like he's about to fire UNICEF. So you should use the link in the description or go to groundnews.com/Hasan, Hasan, to get 40% off their Vantage plan. The same one that I use here at HMDK. That breaks down to just $5 a month for unlimited access. Visit groundnews.com/Hasan and subscribe today.
You have to sometimes work with your Republican colleagues to GSD, get shit done. Yeah. Do you actually, this is a little bit of like tea here. Do you actually have genuine moments with your colleagues?
Yes.
That you may not agree with politically?
Yes.
Okay.
I really do. There's one that I would like to talk about, but
do you want to use pseudonyms?
It would probably hurt that person's election. So
it's Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Yeah, no, I would absolutely.
But Congresswoman, this is what I mean. You guys work in the same place, like
we do.
So for
but
people
she doesn't do any work.
Okay.
She's not.
Wait, work ethics is low, or what do you? What do you mean
no,
she
doesn't do any work. Oh. She doesn't do bills of stuff. She doesn't do anything. No, not her. I mean, it takes like a real politician. It takes like a real so for sure. As someone who came out of the criminal space and believes in like criminal justice reform that is smart. A lot of my bills around fentanyl. I've done that with a number of, Republicans that have been like, oh no, like the border crisis, it's all the fentanyl and da-da-da. And I'm like, okay, whatever. But like, let me work on some legislation that I actually started working on in the State House. Really good legislation that would save lives. So some mitigation stuff, like just to make it
so
to
how
where.
do you do this nerd stuff outside of the cell phone theatrics? because you pull up anywhere. You're at a Cinnabon in the Atlanta airport, cell phones are out, and you gotta put your performance on.
Yeah.
But this kind of nerdy, all right, let's get into the law review, let's get into the fine details. This requires you to maybe slide in the DMs of a Republican colleague.
Yeah,
hey,
no,
how do
I
we
mean,
work on this together?
we
Do you have
work
any
on-
anecdotes? Because you guys use the same bathrooms. You
We
use the
don't
same dining
usually.
commons.
No, we not really.
Really?
No, because
So you just eat and
we
sleep
all
green
have
solo
our
in your
we all
office?
have our own offices that have restrooms, so you don't have to use them.
Okay.
Whatsoever. And then yes, like off the floor we have restrooms. We have a woman's restroom on one side and a men's. So you may go in there like really quickly off the floor. But for the most part, you don't really, I mean, everything is divided.
Oh,
It's
so you
left
don't
and right.
interact?
You don't. No.
Wow.
So like when we're in the House chamber, Dems sit on the left, Republicans sit on the right, and that aisle that goes down the middle, that's what it means to cross the aisle.
Yeah.
When we're in committee, we sit the exact same way. Now, when I was in the state house, we didn't sit that way. We weren't split up. Like you could have a desk mate that was a Republican, and like you were mixed in. In fact, the way that we sat in committee, it was opposite.
But this is like an 8th grade dance, but with more hatred and tension.
Yes.
So how will
everything
you-
separate.
Yeah. So
Our cloakrooms, everything separate.
How do people reach across the aisle
So
then in that
usually you either have to make the effort, like you do research on like maybe members that have dealt with certain issues in the past, and you're like, oh, this person may be more inclined. Sometimes it's lobbyists. Sometimes lobbyists are like, hey, we know you're working on such and such. We think a good partner for this would be such and such because they're really passionate about this too. So the lobby plays a big part in some of that. And then we go on our congressional delegation trips. So as I was saying earlier, we travel internationally, and usually we would travel and check out on like our USAID dollars. We would see them in action. We would like check up to see how things are going.
Gotcha.
So when you take a lot of those congressional delegation trips, that's when you like end up interacting more. But we don't really interact like that. It is kind of built in a very inefficient way. Yeah.
That sucks that you got to do like a school trip abroad to finally.
Yeah. And
talk to a
Republicans
Republican
are
colleague
so
to get
many.
stuff done.
They're so much better out of the country. Like everywhere we
Oh,
go.
they're better at reaching out to you guys.
Well, they're better when we're out of the country.
Got it.
So like in the country, they never know when cameras are rolling. But like when we leave the country, none of them deny climate change. Because we consistently have conversations about all that.
So you're in Portugal and they're like, sea levels are rising.
Yeah, well, I haven't done that one yet, but I was supposed to do Portugal. But yes, they literally, I mean, we've been, especially, we do a lot of trips to Asia for a lot of different reasons. But literally,
Wait, what did
like,
that
they'll
look
talk
mean?
about.
The way you looked, what did that mean? A lot of different reasons. What does
Well,
that mean?
because it's the complications of China. It's the complications of trying to diversify our supply chains. And now I don't think we're going to diversify anything because of the tariffs. But like these are things that we do. These are things like I never post. I don't think I've ever posted on about any one of my international trips because I don't think that the American people really like the idea of us leaving the country and they feel away. But it's what we do. Like I've sat down with emirs and prime ministers and presidents of other countries. Like we are diplomats. And
so that's just in your photo library, never gonna make the
yeah,
Instagram
we don't
story.
yeah, I don't post them. I don't post them at all. Because I think it is a disconnect. And I think people think, oh my gosh, they left the country and they did whatever.
Are you
It's
working
like,
for another country? The American people want this.
Exactly.
How
It's
dare
it's
you
not
go to
even
that
worth
other
the headache,
country?
right? But
Gotcha.
it's like this is part of the job to make sure that we're keeping everyone safe. And we really were working in a very bipartisan way to really figure out some smarter supply chains that also would reduce the need of people needing to migrate to like the United States, because we would be helping as it relates to their economy and hopefully helping to create their own middle classes other places.
Sure.
So like very well informed. Like we have done lots of trips. Or I've done lots of trips, but it's usually over there and we come together on these things. Like they literally do not, I was shocked. Like I was waiting a couple of times. I'm like, so you're not going to deny that? Oh, because you denied all day long at home. They don't. They become like normal-ish when we leave the country. But when they're here, no. Yeah. It's crazy. I'm the same everywhere I go.
Okay. No, I believe it. I have watched the consistency in your many performances from late night to podcasts.
I am the same.
We are talking days after the No Kings protest.
Yeah.
there were millions of people in the streets. Do protesters and protests help you do your job better? Is it an articulation of the wants of the American people that you can then levy into change?
No.
Okay.
I don't think so. I think what they do, though, is they allow people to be reassured that they're not alone. Because right now, especially if you get on certain social media platforms and you see all the craziness that's posted, you're like, am I by myself? And thinking that everything's falling apart, right? And so I think that it builds community. And, you know, my hope as it relates to the protest is that it's not a moment, but it turns into a movement.
Yeah. A
movement that can carry us through local elections, a movement that can carry us through the midterms as well as through the next presidential. So that's what it does for me, is it makes me know that people are actually listening and paying attention, and that they are motivated. And it's my only hope that the organizers hold on to this energy and get it translated so that we can make real change. Because the change comes when we change the lawmakers, not by trying to actually convince them of something they don't want to be convinced of.
Because I'm part of a group thread called Du Bois. It's just me and my homies that I grew up with. And one of Du Bois, his name's Hamza. He's on the group thread, and he started making fun of everybody that was at the No Kings protest. He's like, oh, you stupid idiots. You guys went to Staples and got your little sign, and you said, no Orange King for me, and you waved it. Then you walked your butt back to the parking garage, and you drove home, and then you watched the NBA Finals. It didn't do shit.
Yeah.
Now, Congresswoman Crockett, what I'd like you to do is address Hamza at this camera. And tell
Hamza,
us,
you're wrong. You're wrong.
I need a little bit more. I need some more spice on that. Tell us why Hamza's fucking stupid.
No, okay, I'm not gonna do that because I don't know you.
Okay, but this is for Hamza because I'm dropping this into the group chat.
But I legitimately know that there are so many people that feel so isolated. And having that sense of community and starting to figure out, oh, these are my neighbors that aren't crazy, that's where we are going to get the real change. But I understand where you were going with it. I get it.
Okay, now Hamza's technically from Plano. Now you represent Texas's 30th congressional district,
Yes,
and I looked this up, and Plano's outside.
Yes,
yeah, that's
exactly.
right. Did you hear that, Hamza?
Yeah, he doesn't have a good rep.
You don't got a good rep.
No.
Yeah,
you should have been marching, honey, to figure out who in Plano could come together so y'all could get some real representation.
So what she's basically saying is you're the fucking loser. You didn't go to the protest, and you're at home playing Call of Duty. Back to you, Congresswoman Crockett. You are someone who literally, in your legal background, you defended Black Lives Matter protesters.
Yeah.
So for the people that are attending protests and future protests, do you have legal counsel for them? What should they know if someone's a first-time protester?
So I am not allowed to give out legal advice, so I will give you friendly advice not legal advice. I will say, number one, I think that everyone should have the telephone number of someone that's important actually written on their arms, because you never know what's going to happen. You don't know if your phone is going to die, and most of us don't remember telephone numbers. You don't know if you're going to be injured, and so absolutely have like at least one, if not two, important telephone numbers written on your arm. I'd say always consult with a lawyer before you actually go to the protest so that you can understand the parameters of what the law is in whatever municipality you're in. Also, make sure you've got a lawyer on call. So one of those phone numbers would probably be the lawyer's number, just in case you're arrested or anything like that, so that as quickly as possible, whoever is going to help you can be notified and hopefully keep you from going to jail. But if they're taking you to jail, get you out of jail as quickly as possible.
I'm so sorry, by the way, for asking you to give legal advice. Here is some legal advice by the National Lawyers Guild. Let's take a look.
Okay. Together, we've been fighting fascism for over 50 years.
And so much has changed over those 50 years, such as the ingredients to a successful firebomb.
And the glass that bank windows are made of.
But there's one thing that hasn't changed over 50 years, something that is so important to tell you kids who are new to this movement.
Shut the fuck up. You're sitting in the police transport van after a protest?
Shut the fuck up. In a holding cell with your comrades?
Shut the fuck up. Cop knocks on your door?
Shut the fuck up.
Texting on an unsecured device?
Shut the fuck up. Pulled over by the cops after a protest?
Shut the fuck up. Cop just asking about your day?
Shut the fuck up. Feds call your mom?
Tell your mother to shut the fuck up.
I love it.
Should I tell my mother to shut the fuck up?
Under these circumstances, for sure. I'm going to tell you, like, real talk, especially Black mamas were some of my worst, like, enemies ultimately.
How?
So when I would have so many clients, the first thing that a black mama does, you call your mama from the jail and you say, Mama, I need you to come get me out of jail.
Yeah.
What's the first thing she gonna say?
Well, what happened?
What you do? And then you start having to explain to your mama on this recorded line, no. And I have no protections whatsoever when it's your mama doing the interrogation. So no. I love the video. It is true. The best right that you have is the right to remain silent. But that actually goes for like your mama. Mamas are the best person law enforcement can have, especially as a black mama, because they gonna always ask. Because they may leave you there. They may, if they feel like you did whatever, they may leave you there. So people are trying to explain, and I'm like, not good. I've had so many of those tapes come back to bite me in the butt.
I want to ask you a question that's very similar to your 30-year mortgage.
Okay.
What's your 30-year plan?
Oh, 30-year. Well, all I can tell you is that I will not be in politics 30 years from now. That is the only assurance.
This is rare.
Congresswoman Crockett, I know.
This is rare.
I know.
You know your colleagues are damn near geriatric. You got a group of coffin dodgers that you work with.
I'm not even going to comment. We've lost 3 members in the House this year. 3 have died in Congress. So yes, I understand.
It's a retirement home.
But my predecessor, she served for 30 years. So many people served for 30 years in the U.S. House. She did 50 years of service total between the Texas House, Texas Senate, and U.S. House. And so many people in my constituency are like, oh, you can do 30 years like Eddie Bernice. And I'm like, no, I can't. So the only thing that I can tell you for sure is that 30 years from now, I hope to be donating to young, amazing talent that is, hopefully running a world that is a lot more clear-eyed and real than what we are living through right now. I will tell you that I actually have my expiration date in my mind for the House.
Oh, wow. You got the exit strategy already there.
I do. And I've already been eyeing people to replace me.
Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, thank you so much for sitting down with us. This was a lovely conversation.
Good to see you.
Good to see you. Yay!